There's never been a time. There's never been a time. There's never been a time as fucked up as this. As fucked up as this. I didn't fuck it up. You probably didn't fuck it up. But they, whoever they are, they fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. I can't unfuck it up. You probably can't unfuck it up. And if we're counting on them to unfuck it up, then we're all fucked. Okay, now here's where you come in. You don't have to sing, just turn to the person next to you and ask them nicely, did you fuck it up? Go on, ask them. How about you? Did you fuck it up? Now sit back and look at them and say, 'cause you look like someone who could have fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. Now let's pick ourselves up off the floor and create a tone of camaraderie and ask, could you help unfuck it up? And then say, are you really so fucking busy you can't take one fucking minute to help unfuck it up? Then lose the righteous asshole attitude and take a breath and say, because I'm willing to pick one thing to help unfuck it up. Won't you join me? Oh, that's better. Doesn't it feel better? Yeah, I'm feeling the love. The problem is, you just can't help feeling bitter that it's fucked up to begin with. You just go round and round like this. Okay, back with me now. I didn't fuck it up. Let it out. Come on. You know you feel it. You probably didn't fuck it up. You don't have to believe it. Just go with it for now. But they, that's right, shift the blame. They fucked it up. Now it's fucked up. That's right. Okay, yeah, you're clapping, but the problem is deep down inside, you're feeling depressed and hopeless, right? You're just gonna change the world. What the hell happened? Okay, I got it. We're gonna come together for this one. I need your help. We're gonna fill this room up with love and inspiration, and it won't last past the time you leave here tonight, but everybody on this side, let's all unfuck it up. Okay, real loud and proud, let's all unfuck it up. Now you gotta keep going without me when I leave you. Here we go. Let's all unfuck it up. Doesn't that feel good? Keep it rolling. Now over here, we have a special part. It's a little repetitive, but it's fucked, 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 it's fucked. It's fucked, it's fucked. Can you do that? It's fucked, it's fucked. Okay, middle, ready? I wanna be an unfucker. I wanna be an unfucker. That's right, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked, it's fucked. Oh, yeah, really loud. One more time with all your heart now.
You're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the One People's Roundtable discussion. It's going to be an interesting night because it's me. No Lisa and no Brian tonight. It's me and Mel. So we can talk about anything we want. No, that's not true. We're going to be good girls. We have as I said, the awesome Mel V with us again, and we're going to continue on where we left off last week. I'm so happy to have you with us, Mel. Unmute.
Unmute. Hey, Dee. So it's really great to be back on the round table, and I'm hoping Lisa and Brian will be able to pop in later. Where are they?
Yeah, Lisa unfortunately is having serious internet issues. She can manage to upload messages on Skype, but she can't download anything right now. She's manically trying to fix the problem. She's trying. So she may be joining us. I've thrown her the link so she can hop in if she wishes. And if we can find her, if she can find some internet. It's kind of early morning in Australia, so it may require coffee first.
And Brian, how's he doing? I heard he'd been ill with dengue fever.
No, yes, Brian's been sick, and he thought he had bally belly, and Dr. Danny kind of ran through the symptoms with him, and I'm pretty sure he has dengue fever. But that's okay. I told him how to look after himself, and he's cruising. He's feeling a lot better. I don't know if he's going to make it right now because of the time zone change. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in Indonesia right now, so I'm not certain if Brian's going to make it tonight.
Okay.
Yes. But he has the link, so if he wakes up in time, he'll be here.
Cool. Okay, so where do we start?
Well, last week's show that we did with you, and of course me and Lisa and Brian, or Lisa, Brian, and I, as I would tell my children, and Sasha Stone, we had a really good conversation, and people really enjoyed it. I got a lot of emails, a lot of Skype messages, people saying they really enjoyed what we brought to the table, and just the open discussion of so many different ideas of being able to, I think when you have conversations like this with people you're really close to, you have the ability to be able to pull out of each other the thoughts, the information where you make connections. Someone says something, it triggers someone else to think of something, and they go, oh, wait. And I think that's what kind of makes some of the best discussions that we have.
For sure. And I must say that this is one of my favorite little groups to sit with. You know, through the course of this gauntlet that we have to engage in, what being alternative media, there are just certain little pearls and gems who have become just amazing people to interact and know and gain information from. And like yourself, Sasha and Lisa are definitely up there with those people. And to get you all together, you know, I know we're all like in different parts of the world, but thankfully, because of technology like this and platforms like this, we can actually come together and bring that information out, and also, you know, just engage with each other without having to worry about judgment, fear. Just there's always that complete openness between us, and no, as I say, that knowing. It's almost indescribable, and in fact, to put a label on it would be too limiting. To the cognitive understanding, because I think there are definitely certain of us that have come here with a very specific understanding of task and purpose, and even again to try and sum that up in a few words it doesn't do it any justice. But again, it's just that thing we all know between each other, no matter what our journeys are, no matter where our places are, there's that understanding of purpose and common ground, and to bring our different bits of information together from our various understandings, from our various bits of research, from our various contacts, all the amazing people we all regularly come into contact with. It's just such a valuable thing to do. And again, then just to do it so openly in front of, you know, the whole world, you know, we broadcast it out. There's complete transparency about our information, discussions and disclosures. And I think it's valuable for others to learn from that too, to see, how things do go down sort of behind the scenes in alternative media world.
Well, I maybe that's a really, really good introduction, because that's kind of the giggle that we all have. With Lisa and Brian and I, a good portion of our shows are really done right off the hip. It's the interaction. We'll come to the table today, like you and I just discussed it before we went live, saying, okay, we really want to go through some of the stuff we talked about last week, because there was a lot of questions and new stuff coming up as we've each started kind of walked away from the table and kind of had our own thoughts expanded on different aspects of it. And yet there's no planning to these shows, really. We just flow, and the conversation flows, and that's where it leads to the next point. And that's why I love working with you and Lisa and Brian and even Sasha and Lily Earth when she comes on. It's the same thing. You just kind of, you come to the table and you say, it's a discussion. It's not about rehearsing. It's about, let's discuss this. What do you think? So I have a topic. I have something I want to talk about. I touched on it last night a bit on the end of Conspicuous News. And I'm sure everyone's starting to get sick and tired of me talking about CERN. But I can't help it, because it's just one of those pieces that just, like I say, I take note of the little things that just swing into focus over and over again. And last Wednesday's show, that's that day of Wednesday, so that was April 5th. So they put out a little update on their website saying, oh, we just about have all the glitches fixed, and we'll be ready to run and start up the Hadron Collider in a few days. And I said on Wednesday, yeah, like maybe Friday night into Saturday, Good Friday, Passover, and the blood moon. And sure enough, Sunday morning, someone from CERN blogs about the fact of, oh, we started everything up yesterday, on Saturday, just in time for the blood moon again. Well, I went and did a little bit of digging. I'm going to see, let me see if I can pull up this document and I can put it on a share screen. Because, like I said, I'm not really all that big on the astrological stuff, but when it does keep coming into play over and over again, you kind of have to go, okay, they play with these numbers. Uh-oh. Hold on, guys. I just screwed up my computer. Damn, there we are. Here, let me pull this up. Now I got to find Zoom again. There we are. I'll show you this. Which document? That one. Okay, can you guys see this? Okay, so I went, and the big thing was that over 2014, 2015, it is a blood moon tetrad, which means there's 4 in a series, ascending, descending, descending. By the way, curiosity that the blood moon happened to fall on Passover, I went and looked it up. So the first blood moon was ascending on April 15th, 2014, and Passover was April 14th from sundown to sundown, April 15th. Now, the second blood moon was descending on October 8th, and the Judaic holiday of Sukkot started, October 8th, and the Jewish holiday of Sukkot started October 8th to 15th. And then the third blood moon, which was Saturday, was the ascending blood moon on April 4th, 2015. And Passover was on sundown April 3rd till sundown April 4th. And the next blood moon is descending on September 28th, 2015. And Sukkot starts at sundown September 27th till sundown October 4th. And you sit there and go, wow, isn't that just interesting? Now, I mean, you have to look, the Judaic calendar is a lunar-based calendar. So given right there, it's it is a lunar-based calendar, and we are talking about the blood moon is a lunar eclipse, a specific lunar eclipse. But still, you just sit there and go, right. And this isn't supposed to have any ritual significance, you know. So let's start there. I don't know how much studies you've done in Judaic lore, but I know you are the queen of mythology and looking at all the etymology of those words that just keep coming up over and over.
Let's see. Let's first strip away the labels, because for me, the most important thing with everything we do is to seek the common denominator, the root of all things. Now, to look at anything under a label of a religion, be it Judaic, Islamic, Christian, Satanic, is a deception. What you need to understand is all religions come from the same root. So what I want to take away right away is any inference to anything anti-Semitic or anti-Judaic. I have a huge amount of Jewish friends, and this is of no insult to him. Hey, Nick.
Hi, how are you?
Nick is doing
nice to have you with us.
I'll try my best, but
he's been sitting in on me ranting and going through all this stuff, so he's already heard hours and hours and hours of conversation on these topics.
a little known secret is I do a bunch of the brainstorming and the leg help around here too. So I'm not just, like a wallflower.
Not just a pretty face.
No.
Yes. Well, I was saying to understand that we've got to strip away the Judaic label. So if you can see me watching somebody else's little kitty, she's coming with some love. What you have to understand is that the rituals that are being referenced, and particularly because they've deliberately been, you can see those dates aren't the same every year. They've specifically moved them to specific times. So they've put them over the blood moon. And there's a specific reason for that. That is because on those days, there's a huge amount of ritual sacrifice, blood sacrifices going on to correspond with that. And obviously the movement of the planets, the energetics, some symbolism of it all plays into the heightening of energetic manipulation, which, again, let's take it back to what everything is about, the root purpose of all ritual, of the entire enslavement of humanity, the feeding of our energetic currency. All of that is about energetic manipulation. So it all comes back to the same thing. And ritual is I'd say, very much more forced, dark way of working with those energies, which can actually be worked with from a perspective of service to others. What they do with those rituals is purely a service to self, practice of craft. And again, I really do want to strip away any labels. I'm not just because it falls on Jewish holidays, it's labeled with Jewish holidays, and we will get back into that. Whether it was labeled with a Christian Easter holiday or whether it's labeled with a Muslim holiday, forget about all that. It's all religion is cult. All cult is ritual. You just got to
scripted that way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, one of the reasons why they do name some of the more controversial, blood moon is a Jewish holiday, and they love to demonize the Jews, okay? We have this impression quite often that the Zionists, the Khazarians, we get this whole sort of let's blame the Jews, put it on the Jews kind of thing. And to be honest with you, I actually feel very sorry for them because they're some of the most persecuted nations on the planet. And I think that there is a deliberate agenda to cause conflict by putting certain deeds of darkness on the shoulders of specific religious groups. Oh, it's the Muslim terrorists. Oh, it's the Jews who brought down 9/11. Forget about it. Strip away the labels. All the different parties supposedly in conflict with each other have secret societies behind the scenes, all part of the same thing. The assassins, the Druzes, the Fatimas, the Caliphates, all of those Islamic secret societies are controlled by the Catholic Jesuits. Okay? Yeah. The Islamic faith is created by the Roman Catholic Church. Provable fact. So this is very controversial. If anyone wants to learn a bit more about that, you're welcome to download a free ebook of my book, South African Guides to the Global Conspiracy, off my website. And it gives you great detail about how all religions come from a common root. And that root is all based in cult ritualism, which ultimately the heart of all cult ritualism is blood sacrifice.
Yes.
So, interestingly enough, if I may, there's an interesting thing that, I mean, all humanity, even cultures that spring up sporadically, Central African cultures, South American cultures spring up, and they all seem to have a need, or they create a belief structure. And those belief structures spring up apart from any of the Latin or the Catholic-based ones, or even, because, I mean, if you take Islam back far enough, it starts in the Hebrew religion, correct? So,
Yeah.
I mean, apart from that, you've got the pagan tribes, which basically hadn't seen modern man up until, you know, just the middle of last century. There are cropping up to be South American tribes and the Aboriginals in Australia, the North American Indians. They all had their own belief structure. So it would argue to say that humanity almost has a need to have a belief structure. So could those rituals be taking advantage of that human basic need?
Sorry, I just got to give you some instructions here. The basic needs from, well, what I'd say is this, is that humanity never really had a belief structure. It was really, when you start looking into dragonology and sort of my area of work, you start to realize that our entire system of beliefs, all the religions, our law structures, even the way in which we go about obtaining food, meat, fishing, cooking, things like that, glass making, some art forms, we never had those as agricultural, nomadic people before we had what we consider dragon culturalization of humanity. And that is where, for me, where I've been able to prove the traceable roots to all religious beliefs are. And whether it be the pagans who were then taken out by the Catholics, which actually practiced their religion, which is very funny, just under different labels. So they all, this is the funny thing, is that, and you get this happening with the Islamic people too. The Catholic Church invented the Islamic faith, okay, but when the Islamic faith got too strong and tried to push away from the Catholic Church went on what they called the Crusades to wipe out the monster that they had in fact created. So it's a constant thing like this, and we see this now happening in history. What we're engaged in now isn't another set of wars or another set of attacks. We're still involved in what I would consider to be the Crusades. They've never ended. We're just different operations and military operations and attacks, not actual, you know, we classify them as wars. We think one war starts, one war finishes, and then another war. We've never stopped being at war. We've never been out of war. We've never, since I'd say the beginning of the Crusades, we've never ever stopped being at war on some part of this planet. Somewhere or another, tribes being killed off, people fighting for their land, nuclear bombs being dropped, whatever it is. We've had it, and it's not stopped. It's an ongoing crusade, and every single religion is tied into the overall plot through people who control everything from the very top through secret societies.
Well, it's really interesting because that whole, just want to rest for a second on the whole concept of the perpetual war. There was a book that Nick and I sat down and read a few months ago, and it's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And basically the premise of this, and it's a documentary. It was written by someone on the inside, detailing what has been done since 1913 to create this incredible war machine, money machine, control machine. And that's what he says. He says the First World War it started in 1913, and it hasn't finished. we're not seeing the beginning of World War III right now, like a lot of people are talking about. We're kind of seeing the culmination of at the very end. This is the end of the final play out, if you will, of that war that began in that one aspect since 1913. But you're right. I mean, it goes all the way back. It goes all the way. But if you're dealing with blood sacrifice and those kind of rituals, then what is the easiest and fastest way to get that energy, that blood energy that you want, than to basically throw a war?
At what point do we call it a World War II? I mean, we've got Africa, the Middle East, Russia. There's 3, 4
Ukraine,
continents involved. At what point do we just balls out say, hey, guess what? It's a World War anyway. So
yeah, they don't want to use that word. That word it's a non-acceptable word right now. So they're trying to come up with a new twist on terminology to relabel it. Yeah, like they like to do.
Yeah, I must say that it's very clear to me that we've never stopped being at war, and it's just the weapons that have changed. It's a little easier to not call it a war when you don't have bombs dropping out of the sky and people hiding underground in shelters. Instead, now they just poison us with mandatory vaccinations, pills, chemtrails, and all that stuff. A complete war against humanity. The stuff on TV, that is, for me, one of the biggest wars on humanity is the stuff we get through TV, because it absolutely can pattern and program your personality into being someone who supports slaughter through the form of war, through the form of attacking illusory terrorists that we've been blindly led into believing actually are existing when they don't. So again, this is, I guess, what we do. This brings it full circle. Always comes back to the solution of it all is that, you have the old idea of a soldier who has a gun, or, a little bit more advanced today, a plane, perhaps. I think the true warrior of the world we're trying to create, which is one which doesn't represent the old one of cruelty and bloodletting, it actually does sit with the media. Because we had Stephen Bassett on a little while ago, and he made a very good point, and that is that the military and the police force are actually sworn into the system. They actually cause perjury. Like the military have their own legal system. You never have a chance of winning when you go up against the military court. It doesn't matter who you are, okay? As a soldier, there's films that are put out there to make it look like you actually have a chance in the military court. That one with Demi Moore, I'm just trying to think of the one. And
Good Men?
A Few Good Men.
That's the one. Yes, it's complete bullshit propaganda to make you think that as a soldier you would actually have rights in a military court, which is you have even less rights than as a civilian. So taking that into account, it then really is up to the media that are the ones who can come and hold these guys to account, to actually make a big noise and put this out there and rub this in everyone's face and go, hey, look, guys, this is what, these people you vote for, this is what they are not doing. And, I think that it's only fair that if a politician makes promises and to win an election, and if they don't follow through on those election campaign promises, that they be pulled up for treason. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no honesty in that. And people are forgetting. I don't know how they're so quick to forget all the promises upon which people, a good example in my home country, Nelson Mandela, okay, coming into power, lots of promises. And the honest truth is that our country was worse off after the presidency of Nelson Mandela than it was before. So people still hail this guy as an absolute hero, whilst there's a brutal genocide going on in our country. All the farmers are being wiped out, and there's a large studied attempt to wipe out the white populations of South Africa as well. And if anyone who wants to learn more about that, you can watch my documentary film, The Last of the Boers. There's, so for me, there's a definite underlying pernicious cult ritualism which underpins every political, socioeconomic, religious, terrorist, war-based aspect of our current existence.
The scientific aspect, oh, that's the one that gets me.
Scientists are sitting right in on those old boy meetings, you know what I mean? The bankers, the politicians, the popes. They're sitting there rubbing elbows with all of them.
Well,
science is the new religion. It really is. And to take gravity or Einstein's theory, right, and say, hey, that's all there is and that's the way it is, it's a belief structure as much as Catholicism.
Well, it is a belief structure because they can't prove any of it. So if it's something you're teaching as being an absolute and yet you can't prove it, you just got to go on faith. Isn't that a religion? I'm really, Einstein was just the Pope of his generation, really, was what it comes down to. No, you got to believe me. Relativity. It's where it is. Just have faith. We'll prove it one day.
The Pope of Scientology.
The Pope. But, getting back to the whole media thing it is so blatantly apparent. I mean, for ones, people like us, we have been slamming the media for years. But they have led, and we talk about the fact of you have these politicians who never ever make good on their election promises. Oh, God knows. I mean, look at Obama. Look at Stephen Harper in Canada. Look at Abbott down in Australia. Cameron in England, just to name a few, who have literally not even come close to accomplishing anything they said they would do. And yet the media plays this role because is it not the media's job to remind the people and educate the people on this? And yet, no, they don't, because their job is actually to distract the people with, Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football or whatever day they play football over there in North America. And yeah, these, reality TV shows, which are anything but reality, and, get them young, train them right. Basically, I actually joke about this. We had, when we were back in Canada, so my eldest daughter would have been 9, 10, and my youngest daughter would have been 7, 8. And we had cable TV, but we had we used to have Discovery Channel and all of these. And then one day, it was I think it was over Christmas vacation or one of those summer holidays, they had all the kids' TV channels were free for 2 months. So your YTV, your Disney Channel, all of these. So my kids were all like, oh, yay, cartoons, we've been, yeah. And you kind of go, yeah, it's the Disney Channel. Okay, go ahead. And then you start sitting in on some of these shows and you're like, are you kidding me? And within 2 months of the kids watching certain shows, the change of attitude, their whole, it was their personality change, where they all of a sudden, it was they had to talk about clothes and boys. I'm like, okay, you're 10 and 8, and you're talking about boyfriends? And since when did this start, and what's going on? And we literally, after about a month and a half, and when we saw how radical a shift was, and just in the way our kids perceived life due to these TV shows, it was yeah, you know what? No, block all those channels. Just get rid of them. And yet, it's a whole society. I mean, it's not just North America, because all those Disney channels, they're in French, they're in Italian and Spanish, and they get pumped out to kids all over the world. Look, this is what you want to have. You want to, this is how you want to act. This is how you're supposed to act to, your friends and all the rest of it. And it's brainwash. It's completely brainwashing for children.
Well, I just want to brag just a little bit now. The kids have been away from that crap for a couple of years now, and the change in them is dramatic.
Yep.
Just want to say, my 9-year-old daughter changed a toilet seat yesterday. Telling you. complete different kid. Like
She
completely
did.
changed the toilet seat. She's the only one that would have fit. So, you know, like, and no, none of that. She dived right on in there. They're complete different kids.
Picking up octopuses off the shore. Hey, Mom, look, I found an octopus. Let's see some kid on the Disney Channel pick up an octopus. Yeah, not going to happen.
But the difference between more time spent reading and less time spent watching television or playing video games is insane. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that's just the aspect of the children, and we're not even talking about the education system now, that's just media and what they do to the children on purpose. It's the exact same for the adults. It's just, you know, more swearing involved on the TV shows, but the message is exactly the same. And the media doesn't do their job. They don't report on news. They report on the slant that they're told to report on. Right? So, you know, this is it when we talk about the stuff in England with the pedophilia cases. And there's this, people are really excited because they're seeing the cases talked about in the media, in the mainstream media. And there's been a lot of people who've been like, finally, I'm so glad they're finally getting these stories out. And they've had to, because the media's had so much pressure, they've had to cave in and start, if they were to not report on this stuff, it would become blatant. So they're reporting on it, yet, like I said, everything they're reporting on, if you watch, is old stuff. It all happened before. Oh, this happened in the 70s. This happened in the 80s. This happened in the early 90s. And there's an air in every one of those articles that, you know, oh, we're investigating this and we're bringing people up under the Scotland Yard in England right now, deliberately took over 17 different cases of child abuse and pedophilia and hid them in the 70s, in the 80s. So it's before. Don't look now. Now it's a distraction. It's a form of distraction. They've taken something that is so huge and pervasive in their culture that they can't not report on it. So they're twisting it and they spin it so that it's all, this is a problem that was, you know, before. And we're investigating it now, so you don't need to think about it anymore. So everyone just forget about it. Go back to watching cricket or cricket, rugby. Well, I'm talking about England.
No, it's awesome.
You know, hey, I'm working with it as best I can. You know, go back to watching Coronation Street because we're investigating it. So you don't, you know, it's all out in the open now. There's nothing else here to see. Don't look over here. Nothing to see. And that's how they hide this stuff.
Well, let's talk about what the media machine actually is, so people understand the mainstream media machine. Let's for a moment look at the structure of how the global control mechanism is. So you've got, say, the Vatican, and then whatever controls the Vatican at a non-human level beyond that, what the Jesuits and all of them and all the cults and everything all put the energy into in terms of dragon worship. Let's now take it at the human level down. So the Vatican controls all the intelligence agencies across the world, the KGB, the CIA, the British Secret Service, the CSIS, everybody, the works, the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, every kind of thing like that is ultimately controlled at the top by the Vatican through the Jesuits, including the Global Intelligence Network, which the Global Intelligence Network controls every aspect of media. Okay, it's a fact. William Colby, former CIA director, has actually said that every single major media outlet is in fact controlled by a CIA asset, usually someone who is knighted into one of the knightly orders. So if they're all controlled by the intelligence agencies, okay, you can consider that media is in fact an intelligence agency operation. Provable fact by one thing that has come out in recent years, which is what the telephone hacking scandal. Since when do media agencies have the right to do that? No, this is what intelligence people do, not frickin' media. They are monitoring everybody, and when it's opportunistic to use a piece of information about a celebrity because they're not playing ball, they drop it in the media to blackmail them into doing what needs to be done. Okay, because let me tell you, every single one of these celebrities who getting famous, making money, getting lots of roles, winning Oscars, okay, they are considered military assets. Some of them have military passports and CIA documents that they can travel with. Marilyn Monroe had CIA documents. She actually had a CIA identity document because she was a completely owned CIA asset as an MK Ultra asset. So the majority of people in media, they're like that. They are, in fact, assets of the industrial military complex, which is why you find a lot of celebrities fronting things like the UN and
organization and UNICEF and Save the Children. Oh yeah,
yeah. And of course it was.
And vaccines, you know, they all got to do their thing to help Bill Gates push the vaccines.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you got the whole thing which is predicated against the public with propaganda with Walter Lippmann and Ebba Benes, getting celebrities to mix with royalty to make them more popular. And in turn, they made each other popular. The whole cult of celebrity evolved out of this need to brainwash people by popularizing certain people and then making whatever they do iconoclastic. So we aspire to that and wish to copy that. We wish to dress like them. We want perfume from them so we can smell like them. You know, oh, do me a favor. It's ridiculous. And the fact that they actually have this, the perfume industry is a perfect example of just how brainwashed we are by this thing. Because let me tell you, the perfume brand is one of the most lucrative out there, okay? It takes something like 14 cents to fill a perfume bottle with the smelly stuff. What you pay for is usually the bottle and the packaging and the brand name that goes on it. But that ain't the scent you wear around your neck. I mean, I'm not wearing a bottle of Lolita Lampica around my neck. I'm just wearing her fragrance. But, you know, they sell you these fancy bottles and packaging and then charge you $50 for something that costs 14 cents to make because guess what? It's endorsed by Beyonce or it's Beyonce's latest fragrance. Guaranteed she didn't have a hand in making that. She just stuck her name on it so it could make some money. And this is that they convince you. They actually blindly, it's so pernicious and malevolent the way they manage to convince you into this iconoclastic idealism that is aspirational and that we buy into because we believe we're not enough. Because if we are enough, we cannot be sold to. We cannot be conned into buying product, into being an unconscious consumer.
Yeah. And you can't be controlled. If you can, you know, if you can teach children, little girls, that they need to have the fashionable clothes, and you know, it's okay to steal that fancy scarf as long as you feel bad about it by the end of the show and apologize. Doesn't change the fact that, you know, you stole the $200 scarf.
Say I'm sorry on Sunday.
Yeah, and say I'm sorry on Sunday. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. You know, they teach them that you want this car, you want to listen to this music, you have to dance this way. Your hair has to look like this. You need to have this shade of eyeshadow. You want to have your nails done that look like this. If all their focus is on that, then their focus is not on anything that's real. If you can completely entrench them into this whole...
God damn it, I have a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes.
yeah, I gotta have these shoes. If you can grab them into this, and then they're not going to pay attention to the other stuff. They don't look at anything else going on. And you've already trained them from the time they're 8, 6, 3. You've already trained them. So they continue that all the way through their lives until they're grown-ups. And I'll tell you a story. We were in a Walmart, of all goddamn places. It was about 2 days before Christmas, 3 years ago. And it was one of those things where you'd gone in, and Walmarts in Canada and the States stay open like 24 hours a day for the last 2 weeks before Christmas because, you know, they got to get every penny you've got. And we had to go into the store because it was literally, in the small town we were in, the toy that I was trying to buy, the only place to buy this one piece of Lego was at this Walmart. So we went in at like midnight in the hopes that it would perhaps not be so insanely busy. And beyond, I mean, literally, when I go into any kind of those box stores, I feel physically ill. Within minutes of walking in the door, I physically feel like I'm going to either pass out, throw up, or just almost suicidal. And I stood there in the lineup, and it's like 1:45 in the morning. And you stand there, and of course, you've got those shelves, and it's all full of the magazine racks. And I can't even remember what had been going on in the world at that moment, because I can't even remember what year this was. I think it was 2012. But there was so much heavy shit going on. You know, me being, you know, the conspiracy theorist and doing the underground media that I was so aware of. And I stood there in the lineup, and there were all these people in front of me, and, you know, they pick up magazines while you're waiting in line. And it's like two guys are standing over here, and all they can talk about is this hockey game and this guy. And did you know he just signed on with this team? He's making $15 million a year. Oh, no, they should pay him more. He's worth more than that. And then there's two women in front of me who are making fun of some actress's feet. Because, you know, People magazine was, you know, running an article about the ugliest feet in Hollywood. And I literally stood there and listened to these snippets of conversation around me that were so meaningless. And so, all of these people in these fucking magazines. And I started to cry. I literally started to cry. And it was like, I can't take this. Like, I just want to start screaming at these people and say, do you have any fucking clue what's actually going on in the world right now? You're making fun of Jennifer Aniston's feet? You're going to spend $4 on that magazine just so you can make fun of Jennifer Aniston's feet? And yet, that's the programming, right? That's the programming. And on those shelves, there's not a single piece of news. Not a single piece of real news. It's sports magazines, it's models, how, you know, Cosmopolitan, how to have sexy baby toes this summer. I don't know, you know, and that's all it is. And yet that's what people are encouraged to, you know, like, this is what you want. This is what you want to worship right here. Just worship this right here. Be distracted.
I used to move in that world, Dee. It's, I don't know, I think what amazed me at the time when I was doing it, I always was distinctly aware that there was a bubble that I was just not able to completely break through. Whatever that bubble is, whether at that stage didn't know that that bubble actually is the initiated, basically. And the uninitiated were always just ridiculously walked all over and used within media. I can't even tell you how many times I got chewed up and spat out, okay? And how much I got used and how often my ideas were stolen blatantly from me. And just, it's various, I won't go into the oh poor me ones, but what I will say is that I began to distinctly realize that there are some very cold, very calculating people who work within media, and it's almost like there is a distinctive studied agenda to be like that, because to connect emotionally would mean they would have to care, and that becomes a problem. When they start to care, then they become less valuable to the agenda, because, oh my God, you don't want someone who's got a conscience and actually doesn't want to, you know, for example, rape a little boy, you know. We don't want people with conscience, you know, people who actually have humanity in them. And that's basically what it came down to. I really struggled. I always struggled. I suffered from a lot of depression working when I was in London. And having looked at this grid, which I presented to Lisa on one of her shows not so long ago, I realized that I've actually lived on every single point in that grid, and then some. In fact, we'll go through it again one day, another time, and I'll show you all the places I lived in London. And I just, after 9-10 years, I was like, I just cannot live in this evil place anymore. I have to escape. And that was literally it. I actually called my mom up one day and said, Mom, today I stood on London Bridge and I wanted to jump off. I wanted to commit suicide, because this is what I saw. I saw everything was completely black. I saw flames coming up from underneath the buildings. I saw blood dripping down the buildings. I have to leave this place. I'm losing my mind. we're talking 2000, the back end of 2008, and this is when supposedly the harmonic convergence was happening, and I had no idea this is what was happening. But what it was telling me was, you're on a grid of evil. You're never going to break through into that enlightenment. You're never going to have that awakening stuck on the grid of evil. You've been living on it for 10 years on one or other point of this grid of evil that is in London. And we moved to Holland. Almost within a few months, I had my initial peak awakening experience where that was the point where there was no coming back from. Okay, that was the moment when I sat in a coffee shop and someone handed me a piece of paper with the word Zeitgeist written on it. And I took it home and Googled it, watched the film, wrote down a few notes, started Googling that, and, started writing a book.
There you go.
So there is all this which plays into it. And all of this has become an innate understanding, which is fed into the work that I'm doing now, which ultimately, for me, take everything back to the origins. What is the origin of everything, or what is the purpose of everything? And for me, what I have come to realize is all the things that have become auxiliary to us in terms of entertainment, be it music, be it theater, be it sport, even art, all of it, although we as human beings have innate creative expression, all of it has been bastardized and hijacked and innately used for the perpetuation of the Ophidian vibration, which keeps us locked down in that servitude and fear. And keeps them harnessing our energetic currency for their own benefit, instead of us being able to take that and manifest that in our own innate creative capacities, which we're all born with. It's all structured, and if you go into school and you show a little bit of creative talent in this, they may say, "Oh, let's make you an engineer, or let's make you, this designer." There's all these little categories you've got to fit into, and I kind of came out of school and I'm very, very artistically creative from a very young age, but I was useless at maths. So it didn't fit into any of the boxes. I didn't want to do this art or that art because I found it too limiting. So eventually I went for performing arts because it was quite broad spread. But even then I had absolutely horrendous lecturers who had no talents at all. And they were totally uninspiring. I learned nothing from them. I actually sat there going, I'm more talented than you and I've got to sit and listen to you for 3 fucking years. Are you crazy? No, serious. I believe that those people who become teachers clearly are people who didn't make it in their field, that they got stuck there, or because they're so poorly paid, they couldn't get the best ones to teach. They got the worst freaking people to teach these youngsters. My lecturers were just appalling. I actually think I was, at the age of 18, I had a better vocabulary than half of them. It was just that bad. They were so undereducated trying to teach me. Anyway, needless to say, I dropped out of both universities. Went to university, dropped out of that because that, was just so narrowing. Go to an arts college. After 2 years, I was going, not one of you art teachers can teach me anything because I'm far more talented than all of you put together, and I'm going to do something else. So I did, and drifted around trying to find out where I fit in, because when you have a huge amount of creative capacity, that cannot be manifested in a way that sustains you from a resource purpose, because life is not geared that way, you become one of these individuals who are innately adrift in society. And people will often relegate you to loser or whatever title they want to. But the way I look at it is that, like Sasha said when we spoke with them last week, how blessed are you that you can be that hermit, completely be outcast. And that's what, in some ways, I feel. And I've never really felt outcast, but I deliberately, what I call hermitize myself, because I, like you, Dee, just cannot stand listening to that fluff and bullshit about the footballer and how much money he has and which chick he's screwing and who's wearing what and my Chanel handbag. Oh, Jesus, I tear my hair up,
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
Well, I was just going to say, you were speaking about that inner circle or breaking through that barrier, whatever it is. I mean, these guys are above the law in a lot of ways. They create the situations, so they are above the law. I have a very good friend who is a very, very successful paralegal in Canada, who sponsored me to go into the Masons at one point, or was going to sponsor me to become a Mason. I wasn't really interested. But, he was willing to be one of the two to sponsor me to get in. And I'll tell you, he was telling me things that they do. They go to to like one of the clubhouses that have their meeting, and there's police officers and judges and lawyers and politicians in those meetings, and they do things like the police officers will take all their license plates, put them in the system as under observation.
Yeah.
And if they're under observation, they've been drinking their faces off, but because they're observation, if they get to a checkpoint and they get pulled over and they have to do a breathalyzer, they'll just put them back in their car and on they go because they're under observation. So, I mean, they use the system to create a situation where they, for all intents and purposes, are above the law.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting.
You're muted,
your
Mel.
microphone just...
No, she forgot to unmute again.
There we go. The really sad thing about the system is that, there's such a huge amount of law programs on TV. I mean, the longest running TV program on TV is, I think, Law and Order.
Yeah.
And these, these programs, there's a lot of law programs. There's a very, very trendy one that's just come out very recently called How to Get Away with Murder. And it's freaking brilliant. And what all these programs are there to do is to give, for me, the sheer amount of them just gives you the idea. There's the sheer amount of hospital programs pushing the medical and pharmaceutical industry. The sheer amount of law programs, the sheer amount of police programs, all reinforcing this idea of there's some kind of necessity for them, or there's some kind of efficacy or fairness. But the reality is that it doesn't matter how versed you are in law. The law system was never designed to protect civilians. It was only ever set up to give us the illusion of freedom and rights so that we go to work, pay our taxes, believing we've got freedom and rights, and believing that if we vote, that there is actually some validity to doing it. When there isn't. There is no validity to any of it. They make it up as they go along. And they give us this whole charade, which we follow in line. And so long as we are standing in the queue to vote, they know they control us, because we all know that there's no point in voting in any elections. We should all be boycotting elections, because they're playing into any form of election. It's just giving the illusory game of politics more validity. We shouldn't be giving any validity. Doesn't matter which politician we vote for. So that's one of the things that I've been saying for a long time, is that I think they know they've got us in control whilst people are still going to the polls to vote. That is their test. That for me is their litmus test. That is how they test just how brainwashed the public is. And unless and until we stop playing into their game, they always know they've got us, and they will always continue to play us. So one of the first things we stop doing is we stop going to the polls to vote. Okay, and then along with that, stop paying taxes and stop watching TV and all the others. But one of the things first we stop doing is stop going to polls.
Yeah. Stop watching TV. Except for CCN. You should watch that every day. It's kind of like TV.
Yeah.
Biggie gets really upset at me when I say we've got the radio show tonight, and he goes, radio? I'm like, right. Okay, right, video. So years of saying radio show, I can't help it. Even my kids still call it, do you have a radio show tonight, Mommy? Yes, I do. A TV show. Something like that.
Yeah, I must say it's the joy of having working with cutting edge technology and putting it all together is it takes a bit of programming to get used to speaking in new paradigm.
Well, here you go. Here's the word that we need to invent, because this isn't TV, right? Because a TV stands for television, which is that thing that you have that you watch mainstream media on and get lied to and brainwashed through. I mean, it's not radio, because hello, you can see me. So we should come up with a word. What is this?
Well, I tell you what it's not as well, is I don't like I often use the word broadcast. I don't like to use the word program. Even the word broadcast is wrong, because it talks about casting spells, and you cast that spell broadly, okay?
And program.
Yeah, but the word program.
Yes, you'll notice within our network, I never use it.
I like it. Nick, awesome. Okay, Nick, we are anti-programming. We have an anti-program show tonight. It's called
That's brilliant. We should do that. An anti-program tonight. Now, again, we have to rewrite our entire language, because even the way we've been taught to label things has actually tricked us. And, you just have to look at the exact meaning and root of words, as we've been going into through my Dragonology course, to understand exactly how we've been tricked. It's very simple and easy to understand and cognitize once you get into it and you start breaking it all down and deconstructing the whole thing. But again, look at the words we typically use as what we do. One of them we be programmers or broadcasters. Those are the two we typically use for us, and both of them are freaking awful. And neither of them are accurate, and both of them are very actually enslaving, demeaning, and contra to what I believe we're doing.
Yes, and
perpetual motion machine.
Perpetual motion. Yeah, Nick Sayers was perpetual motion machine. It's really funny, because it wasn't until I guess about 2012 where I started to listen to like YouTube videos and blog talk radio shows that were talking about etymology. And it's obviously started on the whole legal basis, people untying the knots of the legal terminology. And you don't realize how many words that we use every day. And the big one for me is understand. I understand. Yes, you understand. You say it to your kids, you say, do you understand? And they go, and then you catch yourself and you go, oh my God. And yet, okay, do you say, do you comprehend?
Do you grok?
Do you grok? That's what we use. Do you grok? Okay.
There's one of your guys in your rooms, though, who's an absolute genius about picking apart languages. Like, always, I mean, English, obviously.
Arthur,
he just nails it.
He gets words, and
he'll pick a conversation with him. I think
he'll pull out words out of an article and go, "Believe it, be-lie-v," and then you sit there and he'll just highlight words and he'll just separate them into their the consonants,
components,
just the components of the word, and then you reread the sentence again and you go, "Oh, that has a whole new meaning." One of the other words is the word no. Yeah. But not no as in the negative, but no as in I know. I know what I'm going to do today. And yet, when you talk about sound, you talk about speaking, no is no. And the English language is seriously messed up that way. How many words are the exact same sound and yet have completely different meanings? And you start to become aware of those words, and you kind of realize just how much you've been programmed to use them all the time. And if you think of them as that creative aspect of that spell casting, the writ, the right, all of this, and you realize the words you're using and you go, oh man, I need to switch to a new language. Yeah, I'm just going to, I don't know, go to sign language. I'll go back to speaking sign language again. Learn that one all over.
I just want to say, Arthur, I did remember your name, and we miss you from the room. If you're watching.
We should actually go walk back to mental telepathy. I think that's how we're originally communicating, to be honest with you. Yeah. Anything that needs to be some, any thought, intention, or emotion that needs to be represented symbolically through a word, be it written or spoken, is subject to misinterpretation and manipulation, because that is the entire purpose of representing something symbolically, is for the purpose of subterfuge. Symbolism has been developed specifically and intentionally for the specific purpose of subterfuge. So you have to understand that. Consider, for example, a word. I won't go through the etymology now. We'll leave that till Thursday. But any words that you've learned, how many roots that has, how many languages that's evolved from, and how many potential meanings that's potentially gone through, and what it has ended up as, and what we're taught it ultimately means, and probably doesn't mean that, and probably never did mean that. And so, this is the catch-22. Do we now create a brand new language and start to teach a whole universal brand new language? Because every single That's a great idea. It's a tall order, but you look at the English language, and even the words, and I've been talking a bit about them, the words that seem to have very little value in terms of things like the, or, they all have a purpose. And you think they're just stuck between words to join words like this or this. There has to be this word between it because it symbolizes something. And yeah, it does, but not necessarily a joining of words or a creation of a sentence. Sentences have been created as sentences because they're giving you a sentence, possibly a death sentence with the spells you're casting upon yourself. So there's a reason why sentences are constructed in a certain way. You know, it's the same as why a judge gives you a sentence. It's a specific mandate, a specific order, which means the words have to be in a specific order in order for the spell to be effective. And this was also the concept behind poetry. Poetry was originally developed purely for spell work. Okay, yep. And to give you an idea of this, now let's get into something a little bit funky here. We talk about, for example, if anyone's seen the film Anonymous with Rhys Ifans, and I freaking love that film, where it's Anonymous, it's called, with Rhys Ifans, and basically it's a story of how Shakespeare didn't write any of the work that he did because basically the son of Anne Hathaway, who was born in Stratford-upon-Avon, Anne Hathaway and her son were never educated. The guy known as William Shakespeare never left behind a single script, couldn't write, left nothing behind to his children. He was a commoner, a poor man. Okay, and it was only in the 1800s that education became sort of compulsory for all. Before that, if you wanted an education, you had to be very wealthy and go to a Jesuit or be of royalty, or clergy. Those are the only people, nobility were the only people who were allowed to, given the privilege of being allowed to read and write. So who was William Shakespeare? We trace him quite probably to a guy called Edward de Vere, the 8th Earl of Oxford. Now, when you start looking at my dragonology stuff, the De Veres were the dragon bloodline. And when you start looking at Shakespeare's work, it's like, oh my God, you have to be a dragon or someone who knew this shit. Because let's take the play Hamlet. The lead character is a princess, so she's royalty. What's her name? Ophelia. And she's got the Ophi root word in her name, Ophelia. Okay, and what does she do? She commits suicide. Right? It's, again, sacrifice, always associated with this. This guy knew, whoever wrote, can I ask you, is there anybody out there now, any of you very talented writers who can write in iambic pentameter? Because it's fucking difficult. This guy wrote 100 and something sonnets, 32 plays in iambic pentameter. That's 5 beats to the bar of every freaking sentence. That's pretty difficult. You know who else writes in iambic pentameter? Witches and wizards, because pentagram, the 5 beats, is for spell casting. All of Shakespeare was written by a highly initiated, highly educated royal dragon bloodline, clear about all the symmetry and imagery and opulency used in his language and words. And this is Shakespeare, and all of this was specifically, go read A Midsummer Night's Dream, because all of it is pure Greek paganism and pantheism. And there's no way you could have known about that if you were a common man. You would have to be a highly initiated person or royalty or dragon of some sort.
Take notes because, man, I'm so sorry. So I just wanted to say really, really quick, the witches and wizards thing in the pentagram, man, that pentagram is so awesome because mathematically it does some really funky shit. It has the divine number all through it, the mathematical segments dividing into the lengths of the actual arms, the area in the middle versus the area inside of the points. Man, the pentagram is cool. So I just want to say the mathematical significance that sits in that pentagram is fucking awesome. And it just is like a fairly recent thing where witches and wizards and like the bad people and Satanists were using it. Fuck that. Second, I want to say that and arguably at some point along the development of the English language, it was co-opted as the scientific language. You know what I mean? Like the people of that time were using it as almost a code language for enlightened people. And if you look at the word enlightened and English, they have very, very similar roots. Now, it obviously progressed into what it is today. Shakespeare did his thing with it. We are doing our thing with it. on the streets, between people, the intent of your words is very, very important. And I don't think so much, as long as you learn to expand your vocabulary, that the communication is the problem. But what happens is that English has been used as a legal language. And man, does that fuck people up. It is built with entrapment. It is built with loopholes and like serious, like if you had your dictionary and you listened to the sentence and you said, okay, just let me look at this in the fucking legal dictionary because I need to know, you know what I mean? There are so many little fucking devious bullshit things that happen with the English language that in a legal sense, oh man, does it suck. So, I mean, arguably it is the most comprehensive language for describing, you know what I mean? It has arguably some of the most comprehensive ability to describe things, although there are some blind fucking loopholes in there too. Like, I mean, German has a couple that come right off the hop that doesn't even come into English, but they're so obvious that I can't believe that there isn't a word for it. I'm not going to say them.
They're naughty words. We're not going to repeat because we don't use the word fuck enough.
Hey, I would just like to point that out.
You said
okay, maybe I dropped.
Okay,
sorry, I did drop the F-bomb. All right, here we go. So anyway, the English language is, I think, for the intent of communication, since we have to bark at each other and make noises at each other anyway. For some reason, at some point, we decided to turn off our ability to speak with our minds and our energy. And maybe it was a good idea at that point. Who knows why we decided it? But now we just have to make noises at each other. So English to make noises with is a fairly decent one. I mean, it's got a lot of different ways of saying the same thing. I like it. I really do.
I love the English language. It was always my favorite language at school. I studied performing arts and I learned drama and Greek script in English. And I've always had a passion for it. And I've always been someone who could articulate words in writing and write poems and write plays. And I have a passion for the English language, which is why I enjoy so much the etymology, is because I enjoy decoding and finding out it's a puzzle. Every day it's a puzzle and a mystery, and I find it all very exciting, to be honest with you. I don't let any of this stuff get the better. Every time I decode a new little thing, I'm like, oh, look at that, it's so exciting. It is all a big mystery, and I mean, life would be very boring if everything had just been handed to us on a plate. Okay, this is the way it is. Perhaps we would have been able to explore our true creative potential. Who knows? What I do know is that, there's very specific purposes that we're fulfilling at this given point in time. And again, I do want to throw this in, the philosophical waxing of, are we here fulfilling this purpose because there is a need for that? And if that need wasn't there, would we still be here? Because would that purpose still exist? Are we here, fulfilling a specific purpose? Because that's what the discussion we have before we incarnate into this body, that we're going to come and do this here and now. And would we still be here if that purpose and that necessity to be here and now wasn't here? So we can all complain about, what's going on in the world and this and that and the next thing. And, I ultimately think that it doesn't matter what side of the game we end up coming out on, whether the good guys win or the bad guys win. The most important thing is that we play the game while we're here, and we do it from a place of complete honor and integrity. Because you know what? We can all play the game and win by playing it badly, and playing with the dark. It's not hard to do. And like you were saying, Nick, very good point about the pentagram, because all symbols have a positive application. Everything is neutral. All technology is neutral. All words are neutral. Everything is neutral. It's the intent of the expression behind every action, whether that action manifests in physical, touch, feel, speak, create, whatever that is. The most important thing is always what the intention is. And the intention, again, rooted in specifically two things. Forget about labels like good and evil, because, again, that's just dogma that's been created through Christianity. When we need to look at this, we look at whether you're serving yourself or whether you're serving the greater good, whether you're serving others. That is the categories. all right? You bring it down to that, whether you're purely self-serving or whether it's serving the greater good. And ultimately, define what path you're on and do it now and align with that. That's what I say.
Well, I mean, we started off this conversation talking about just sitting down and talking and how the conversations flow, and the fact that I really do think that each of us kind of has our trigger moments, and that we come together in groups. And I think the significance of how comfortable you are with people having these kind of discussions kind of shows you maybe your little group that you're supposed to be in for that moment, because you trigger each other, and someone brings a piece to the table, one piece of information or a thought or just something that has struck them as being interesting. And when you hear that, it's something new. And you take that, and that changes things for how you have perceived them, what you're seeing about them, what you think about them. And it leads you down a different path. And it's how we communicate in this way, verbally, with our totally screwed up language. But it's us communicating through this way that we are triggering each other, right? I mean, I can't tell you. And I know that, Mel, that you and Biggie are exactly the same. How many nights Nick and I have been up until like 2 o'clock in the morning, debating, the n-dimensional spaces that have to do with folding space, and whether time is actually the fourth dimension, and actually is it the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. And we've had conversations that just go on for hours. And
in language, time exists as its own 3 dimensions.
We're not getting into
but we're talking about language, and language is cool. Here's the thing. Another thing, back to language. I mean, you talk about division between good and evil, man and woman. One of the things that's really awesome that English does not do is attach genders to words for the most part.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you have to attach a gender to it, where from somebody trying to stumble along and figure out Spanish, and you have conjugations for tenses and different, like, we are, or they are, and
I know
the gender attachment for most of them makes me freaky. So English doesn't attach genders to things, but it also gives you a really, really, I mean, there's holes in it too, but broad spectrum to describe time in the present, to describe time in the future, or to describe time in the past. So it really has interesting.
What if there is no future and no past?
We can't do it.
Sorry.
I agree.
One of those conversations. That's the purpose of these conversations that we have. Not just friend to friend, couples, friends, brothers, sisters, whatever, but even the conversations that we're having here is anti-programmers. Because anytime we're bringing information in, and I get emails, even though I try to ignore my email as much as possible, I get Skype messages all the time with people say something like, oh, you know what, you guys said this on the show this week, and I immediately thought back to this experience I had 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and this happened, and now all of a sudden I'm going, oh, I so understand. It's been this huge question I've had, but now it's giving me that little bit of perspective. And that's why the sharing of perspectives is so important, because we each have our own pieces. We each think differently, and we pull the information together differently. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. The conversations we had last week with all of us, with Sasha as well, and Lisa and Brian, it was a phenomenal conversation, because there was so many times I had those moments of like, oh, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Well, I must say, just expanding on that, Dee, one of the great things about working and doing the CCN project and providing this platform to the alternative media has given me the opportunity to see just how everybody interprets the information, how they take it in, how they interpret it, and then how they then put it back out. And everybody, what's interesting to note is everybody perceives things in just a degree separate from everybody else. And then they interpret it. And when it comes out, it's interesting to learn the different ways in which people process things. And what has been phenomenal for me, I'm just so blessed. I have a front row seat to the best university on earth, is to be able to get all these different perspectives on subjects which are now well-beaten, areas with us, and to have this broad way of looking at things. It really is a holographic experience for me, because it's not just, okay, I've gone in and read one person's book and then this is my perspective. I'm really getting the holographic experience of understanding things from every angle, from the light, from the dark, from the in-between, from the left and the right, and the blue and the black. And, it gives you a much fuller, in-depth understanding of the multi-dimensional, multi-layered construct within which we live. And there is only one way to do that, and that is through a multiple series of experiences and perspectives. You simply couldn't begin to get the totality of what it is we're going through by reading, say, a David Icke book. You would need to go and explore several different points of view or areas of research to, for example, prove that the Queen is erectile. Okay, and for example, just to throw the most controversial thing out there.
Oh, yeah,
I can, believe it or not. You want me to prove it? Biggie, sorry, Papa. So I don't know what time is it here. It's quite late at night, and our walls are thin. We live in Holland. No, seriously, it can be done, and I think you just need to take a little look through some of the work that I've been doing to actually have a look at the fact that you don't need to see this woman, sort of bust out of her crown and grow wings in front of you to believe it. You kind of just have to follow the etymology. And look at the bloodlines and look at what these, where some of the things the antecedents and got up to and who they were in history and the stories that surround them, and you kind of go, maybe there's a little bit of truth to this stuff. And yeah, maybe like Sasha says, we, in a flash it occurred to me, my species has been invaded by fucking lizards. Yes, absolutely. That's how it was to me. I had Biggie came home and he found me in front of the computer. I'd literally been sitting there all day crying, and he came home, he sat next to me, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "The world's controlled by the Illuminati." And he goes, "Yes, and I went, and we're ruled by reptilians." And he goes, "Okay, I promise I'll spend more time with you," because he thought I'd lost the plot. Sitting in this
conversations like that.
No, I promise I'll spend more time with you. It's okay. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. No, you fucking bastard. There's something wrong with this world. Listen to me. I'm going to tell you. And it's kind of how it went. And this is okay. And this, I think, was one of the funny moments in our marriage where he kind of sat down and he heard me out. And at the end he went, there could be something to this. So we kind of just incidentally happened to have, within a month or so, Project Camelot popping into town, and we went to see them at a seminar, and I bonded with at that particular, I think it was the 1st of August 2009, place in Amsterdam where I met Kerry Cassidy and Bill Ryan. I bonded with them and bonded with Desiree Rover, who is the first person we ever interviewed, and she was a doyen and real pillar of Freedom Central, and she broadcast with us on CCN. But like that was really where it started for me. Was okay. We met these people. We went to a place where I was actually able to touch, feel, and smell other people who believed and who knew that the world potentially was controlled by people that potentially weren't human. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. It was actually not being in a room with people who weren't crazy but had these ideas too. Breakthrough moment for myself, right? Checking against the margin of normality, as far as it can be described within that context. So that for me was, again, one of those moments. I don't know where I was going with that, but there was a point to that story, I'm sure.
Well, you were speaking of kind of philosophy, though, why we are here, and it's kind of interesting because here's the thing. I can't help but kind of come back to the as below, so above, you know, and it's just so many things it describes, and I can't help but be a little bit of a philosopher. You know, you asked why we're here, what are we doing? For me, you brought up something so fucking important, and that was every single one of us has our own interesting little perspective and our own kick on things, and you love to see how each person brings it out after they've kind of digested it and put their own eyes through it. And I can't help but say that, you know, that's one of the most important things, number one, about what we're doing here, because I can't think of any other excuse for us to be here in 7 billion different versions, except to say that we have to experience things from that many different perspectives. And guess what? I have a funny feeling that we take that perspective with us. You talk about source, and you talk about energy, you talk about how we're all one energy. You know, I can't help but think that maybe it's kind of like an inverse hive mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. Something that needs to have the different complete perspective on all of it. Interestingly enough, how this ties in for now, we are kind of creating that here on Earth, and what we have is the internet. You know, you see these alien civilizations in the Hollywood films, and they're based on hive mind, and the hive mind controls all. Well, in a very real way, right now, if developed the right way and handled the right way, what we have is kind of an inverse version of a hive mind that is, you know, basically a central brain that anybody on the planet can access and have a degree. You know, if they wanted to spend the time learning on what we have as the internet, you can teach yourself to do anything. You could become a rocket scientist, a brain surgeon on the internet for all intents and purposes. So what we have is a repository for our knowledge, and it really connects us in a way that it's almost like telepathy. We can't really make the frontal lobes work yet, but we have almost the next best thing that gives us pretty much instantaneous communication anywhere on the planet. So, I mean, there's scientific philosophers that say we are almost verging on the point of being a type 1 society on our planet because of what we have in the internet. So I can't help but make the comparison of what we have here and what would potentially be, I feel, up there.
There we go. I like that. I like that.
I must say, for whatever purposes the internet was invented, some people say it was the Palladians, some people say it was invented by accident by the cabal to monitor us, and instead, you know, like Facebook, we've turned it around and used their weapons against them, which I think ultimately that comes back to there is no evil weapons. You know, for example, a knife can be used to cut bread or to slice your wrists. Ultimately, depends on the intention. Do you intend to feed yourself or kill yourself? Again, so this is it. If we've taken this beautiful thing, the hive mind, the internet, whatever, we turned it into a good example. I mean, you can use the internet to gamble your life savings away, to become addicted to pornography, or you can use it to build television networks and educational networks and reach out and teach the world from your perspective, however big or small, appreciated that might be. And again, this is what we've done with, you know, the work that we all do is try to absorb and process and then put it out in a way that, for me, the way I try to put things out is that it's in a digestible, understandable, interpretable way for people, because some of these concepts are so huge that to try and put them onto someone who perhaps is new to this information, you often lose people at that point. That's when they kind of put a block up to it and they probably would never go there again. It's so important to try and find that way in through a common route or a common focal point of identity, and then deconstruct from there, which is, I suppose, what I tried to do with the Dragonology series, is to be rather objective in the intro into it. But really what we are going to be doing is, you know, screw the objectivity, because I want to get to the heart of it, which is the cult ritual abuse, which is the malevolence that underpins our entire control system. And that, for me, needs to be exposed and broken down and deconstructed so people understand exactly the components, because once they identify the individual components, they themselves will then not repeat those patterns, because it's the patterns that we perpetuate on the microcosm, which affect the macrocosmic energy of everything, the vibrational patterns that are interwoven into the fabric of our existence.
No, I agree. I mean, it's very interesting. When we talk about perspectives and we talk about sharing our perspectives this way, because you're right. If you think about 100 years ago, let's take a little longer. Let's say about 150 years ago. So before radio, before telephones really, okay, where if you lived in a place, if you were born in a place, there was a huge chance that you were going to live there your whole life, you were going to die in that one small place. And so therefore your perspectives are only ever colored by the people you meet every day, who they themselves have only lived there their whole life. And there were these very insular groups. I mean, we still see it to this day. I mean, you still see it to this day in various cultures, in every culture. We have small towns, and the people have this very, very kind of an insular ideology of how everything works. And you'll find that
a real bad name for that.
And you have, everyone kind of follows the same byline, if you will, the same belief structure, even in daily life of their understanding of things. And the internet, and I mean, they took over media, right? So the radio, the TV, you can't rely on them to give you perspectives. I mean, that's lovely. I can remember as a child watching Elvis Presley in Blue Hawaii. It was the very first time I'd ever seen a movie about Hawaii and being like, oh, I'm going there. Oh my God, I have to go there. But other than the little glimpses that you get of other societies and other places, as we've discussed, the mind is warped and programmed to focus only on these things over here. The internet is an uncontrolled thing now. I mean, hence the fact that they're trying so desperately to control it. And by the way,
important thing too, cyber warfare is ever more important.
Well, and there you go. This is one of the things I actually brought this up last night in Transficuous News, that the BRICS nations came out with a statement against the militaries using the internet and these cyber crimes being perpetuated by governments. Now, we all know that the whole cyber warfare thing is being perpetuated by the NSA. God knows that's been outed so thoroughly, especially in the last 3 months. But we have got the British military made a huge announcement in January that they have now created a troop, if you will, of cyber warriors, who the psyops on the internet, the 77th Brigade. You got to like the numbers, and they've admitted openly that they're going to go out and send these troops, so to speak, out into social media to fight the war of information. Well, of course they are. But it's what they've been doing all along. I mean, we've all dealt with trolls and page shells and all the rest of it. But it doesn't work because it just keeps mutating. And the idea of like communication going through, it's a mutating almost life force in and of itself, where the famous they, make a headway and they go, okay, so we're going to set up all these trolls and shells here. But people have become too aware, and immediately they're like, 1,000 people on that forum going, yeah, you're a troll, goodbye, boom, you're gone. So they're trying desperately to crack down on the internet. Turkey today just banned YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The excuse is that the Turkish prosecutor who was apparently murdered, although, again, there's no proof of who it was who murdered him, that a picture was put out of the terrorist holding the gun to his head And that's the reason why they shut down YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook today. Except that that picture went out on the news last Tuesday. So why did it what difference does it make? Now, obviously, it's a test. This is odd. They've been testing this in Turkey several times. The Turkish government has played the test game, and they always pick a place to hold their tests and watch the reactions of the public, not just the public within the country, but the public outside looking in and watching what's happening. And that's why I always say, when you have these tests come up, when I see them through my perspective, I call them and say, okay, everyone, this is a test. They're testing everyone, so now let's make sure they understand exactly how we feel about this test. And make it very blatantly clear. No, we saw it, we see it for what it is, and we're not going to fall for it. Try again, next year. So this is the whole thing. But the control aspect of the internet, they're failing with. And for each aspect of control they're trying to bring in, it's getting knocked down because the people are working through the internet to protect it.
It's one of the last true places of freedom on the planet.
Yeah, one of the last few places of freedom of speech on the planet, anyways, really. It's actually funny. Nick and I, big sci-fi readers and fantasy readers, we've a lot of our favorite authors. And it's very interesting, I've discovered over the last few years, of books that I read maybe 15 and 20 years ago. And then you reread them now with the knowledge base you have now, and you go, oh, wow, I get the feeling that perhaps Frank Herbert wasn't from around here when he wrote that book, because holy shit. And we have an author who we love, a Canadian guy named Spider Robinson. And he writes completely ludicrous, funny shit that has got some underlying heavy messages. Callahan's Cross Time Saloon, Time Travelers, Strictly Cash. But there's a lot of stuff in his books. And in one of his stories, the entire premise of the series takes place in a bar in Long Island. And they save the world from alien invasions twice. They save the world from time travelers. They have leprechauns who visit the bar regularly. Other good aliens who visit regularly. It's insane. And they discover through their computer that the internet is alive. That the internet is actually developed enough neural networking through all the various neural networks like we have in our brain to become an artificial intelligence. And when when this computer becomes alive and it realizes what it is and how it exists, 3 times previously, the governments had figured out what was going on and they killed it. So she decides, this artificial intelligence decides that the only people that she's discovered in the whole planet who may actually be able to deal with her, and the idea is these guys who hang out in this bar because they're all completely insane anyway. But the concept of the artificial intelligence that is the internet and the story of how it expanded, and it becomes a self-protecting thing. And there's been so many times when Nick and I have looked at each other when different things, like SOPA and PIPA have come up, and all these various things to put control of the internet into government agency hands, and they just don't seem to ever go through. And we kind of joke when we say, oh, look at Solace, because that's what they end up calling the artificial intelligence that is the internet. They call it Solace. And I said, look, Solace is still looking after the planet, because every time they're trying to use the internet to stop the internet, it just doesn't work. It's like the people kind of rally together and the message gets out anyway. So that's my little storyline. I love that book. That's awesome.
I would think one of the things I really want to draw attention to as well with regards to this genre of information and the world that we move in is, for me, it's not so much the famous they, who are necessarily, for me at the moment, the biggest problem, because those people who are still believing and they are hopelessly hooked into it, and they have to go through their own process. It's almost like a rite of passage, your awakening. And you can't really force this on people. People have to kind of come searching for themselves. And this is, now, I never want to force people into an awakening process. It can be quite traumatic if you're not ready. I've seen that go horribly wrong. However, if people come searching, that, you know, they're on this path themselves, they're asking questions, they've heard a thing here or there about 9/11 or whatever, that's another thing. For me, it's not they who is the issue anymore. What it is the controlled opposition who are very carefully siphoning the energy off the awakening mass populace, there's a lot of people now who simply do not believe that 9/11 was committed by Al-Qaeda. I mean, at least half the people you ask nowadays will tell you that there's something a bit funky going on there. So if that is the case, there has to be some way. They can't stop the truth coming out. They never can. They never will. They have to control the stem of the flow of the information. That's where they drop in people like Julian Assange. That's where they drop in people like, what's his name? InfoWars, Alex Jones, controlled opposition. And they keep the information at one level and they never go any further. Yes, they'll admit, okay, yes, ISIS is actually the American government. Ooh, because that's pretty much public common knowledge now. Even Sean Penn admits it, you know. So they all the controlled opposition shows have to jump onto this. Otherwise, they don't look like they're fulfilling, or they aren't fulfilling their mandate, which is to stem the flow of information. Now, things like WikiLeaks gets millions in donations, and so does InfoWars. And what that does is it takes resources, energy, and attention away from the genuinely uncontrolled sources, which, as you know, are forever struggling. Because guess why? People are putting their energetic currency and physical currency and resources into the controlled opposition. And that is the point of them, is to siphon and suck that energy away from becoming something else. You know how difficult it was for us to get this network set up, and even just to get the funding to do something like this is near enough impossible because of the controlled opposition elements that are there. And people come and they post things from Julian Assange on Facebook or people like Alex Jones, and think that they're creating mass awareness, when actually what they're doing is creating mass distraction. Because although there is some truth to some of the stuff these things are saying, they only take you to a certain level. Guaranteed. I mean, I've seen Alex Jones do this. Like, people have called him up and started asking him about the Jesuits, and he slams down the phone because he himself is Catholic. Okay, and his wife works for the CIA. Okay, and his wife's father is a Knight of Malta. He will not discuss the Catholic Church at all, in any capacity. But you know what? He will hammer home the Jew agenda because that's what he's supposed to do. Yeah, they really do want to make it hang the Jews out to dry for everything, and they're placing it all in their hands. When really, to be honest with you, the what we call the Khazarians or the Zionists are actually papal court Jews. They answer to the Jesuits, and they always have. The Jesuits control the Jewish court. So, you can't lay it at the door. You have to look at who ultimately controls things. And on the human level, we're looking at, say, the Jesuits. And, of course, we can go beyond that, but we won't do that for this one.
We only have 12 minutes left. We can't get into that conversation tonight.
How many minutes left?
12 minutes.
12 minutes. We'll do that another night then.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, you know what? Here's the thing, though, and it's very, very interesting. I've had several discussions, and you know how they talk about the steps of grief, and everyone goes through these certain steps. I think in a lot of ways, there's also the steps of awakening, and I think that most people go through their Alex Jones, their WikiLeaks phase, because it's very good for them, for their anger. So you start figuring out that you've been lied to. And then the deeper you go down that rabbit hole and you start really figuring out that you've been lied to, and you get angry, and you get really, really angry. And then you've got Alex Jones is there, and he's so awesome at just feeding the anger machine. And you can, yes, God, and and we're going to scream and yell, and we're going to just bang on the table and
keep your damn guns away.
Yeah, exactly. It feeds that peace. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people who get stuck in that loop. because it becomes an addiction. Anger becomes an addiction as well. Just that emotional place to vent. So some people never get out of it because they get stuck there. But I think for the vast majority of people, at a certain point, they're ready for the next step, which is then they get out of the Alex Jones and they start looking deeper. And that's the journey. I don't know about everyone else. I mean, my biggest problem is for the last 2 years of my life, I have kind of lived solely with people who get it, who are very awake. I mean, listen, it's wonderful. I'm telling you, you know, when all the people you talk to daily are like, you and Vicky, I mean, on the internet, but also in real life here, and people, you know, we had Lisa here and Brian was here, and I'm like, there was just a string of incredible people who came to visit us. And you have these incredible conversations where knowledge is exchanged and ideas are exchanged. And honestly, I can't tell people in words how incredible that experience is, to be face to face with people who you can just be yourself with and have those kind of conversations.
People from all over the world too. We got people from all over Russia who are awesome. They're amazing. They understand that Putin has a hand up his ass as much as Obama does. He does this all the time.
But so this is the whole thing. And then I get to, and I know I'm really guilty of this, is when you spend so much time with people who are like-minded, or I hate using the word awakened. I really, really hate using that. But people who are open to all these conversations.
Taking time to do some self-searching.
Then all of a sudden you start having conversations with perhaps people who are just waking up, and you start talking, and you see people's eyes glaze over and they go like, what are you talking about? And so I kind of joke about this on Removing the Shackles. This is about once a year, and I'm actually a little bit late this year, I will write a kind of in review, because you have people, for example, my website's been going for years now. And yeah, there's been a whole group of people who followed me on this journey, but there's always new people who come in, and you find yourself referring to certain things very, very offhanded, that people who are maybe just newly discovering this go, what? Birth certificates? What the hell is, what? So, and I went through in December, just before Christmas 2013, I wrote a review article about financial stuff, because of course that's one of the prime things that I talk about a lot. And I wrote this review article, and it was like, okay, you can read the article as it is, but beyond the article, like if you go into the links and start following through, you've got about 26 hours worth of reading here, and probably another 15 hours worth of videos. But I embedded 2 really awesome little short videos, the one from England called Meet Your Straw Man, which is one of the most incredible, eye-opening videos ever made. It's like 6 minutes long, and it's a cartoon that is so fucking hysterically funny, but it gives you all the information you need to explain what the birth certificate scam and the straw man is. But I put it out because we sometimes need those little reminders that there's a lot of new people who are just falling down the rabbit hole. And sometimes the rest of us need a moment to kind of stop and go, okay, wait, back up. If I start talking about that, are they going to have a single bloody clue what I'm talking about? I recently got put into a couple of new Skype rooms. And it's the same thing. I started having a conversation with someone else in this room, and we got right into talking about the round table last week and some of the stuff from Lily Earth. And the 2 of us were going off, going, oh, and this. And there was a whole bunch of people in the room who were like, I just hear about Dinar, and I have not a fucking clue what you're talking about, and you're kind of freaking me the hell out. So sometimes a little reminder that we have to take a step back and maybe help these other people kind of catch up just a little bit.
Yeah, we do. And it actually brings us to a good point, because I'd perhaps like to do a Conspiracy for Beginners program on CCN. Sorry, broadcast. Sorry, let's find another word for that, please, quickly.
Anti-programming.
and so programming. But I think we are coming to the end now, Dee. So before we do go, I do want to say for everybody who is watching CCM, please do stay tuned because we have Dean Clifford coming up after this with his new show. The beginning starts here. So, yeah. And after that, Lainey Liberty with Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. And then, Dee, when do you have your next Transpicuous News?
What day of the week is it? Monday?
Monday.
Wednesday. I thought it was Tuesday today. I'm totally screwed up. It's been one of those weeks already. Yeah, Wednesday night, Transpicuous News, the midweek report. Excellent. And of course, Thursday night is Dragonology with Mel Ve. It is my new favorite show. I'm telling you, I cannot be missed. I had to miss it last week, and I was really, really mad.
Yeah, then you did that back-to-back broadcasting, which was really awesome.
And then we all got to play catch-up. I want to thank you, Mel, for coming and joining us. It was so awesome. I loved it. Mel's so awesome to chat with. These conversations are always so much fun. One of these days we'll put like a voice disguiser and like a dark light. We'll have Biggie on the show. Right, Biggie?
Like,
well,
that's what I'm saying. When those like
digitizer, yeah.
Oh, Biggie.
Yeah, you could do like Stephen Hawking.
And Biggie's writing in the text box, not going to happen.
You can call you Stephen Hawking. You can have you on.
Let me tell you why it's never going to happen is because we've been married for 14 years, and why it works is because we have very distinctive roles which we recognize. Like, he doesn't try to cook because it would just be a waste of food. So, so we understand what we're good at. I'm good at cooking. He's good at eating. Like, I hatch the plan. He makes it happen. We have distinctive roles. Now, he knows that I'm the articulate one and I'm the writer, so I get in front of the camera, and he's the one who's techie and makes things happen in the background. So what we do is we don't wander into territory where we can fall on our face and make a fool of ourselves. We stick to what we're good at. So that's kind of what we've learned over the years is, manage the ego, stick to what you're good at, and don't try to step on each other's toes. And that's how you stay married and happy for 14 years.
So if you're not there for a couple of days, does Biggie starve?
Yes.
Yes.
Or he goes to McDonald's.
I doubt it. I know your secret, Biggie. I've
actually had conversations with Biggie. Biggie apparently can't boil toast or burn water, so.
No, nothing.
Anyways, it was so awesome to have you on. Lisa and Brian, we missed you tonight. I'm sure everyone else did.
Yeah, I missed you.
The team will be back together. We'll have the band back together for next week's show. And I'm not sure who we're having on next week. No, maybe we'll drag Mel back in again. But I just want to wish everyone an awesome week. I'll talk to you on Wednesday, Mel on Thursday. And until next Monday, when the roundtable returns, so long.